Sky Mobile sponsors the transfer window on Sky Sports News.
Welcome back to Transfer Talk. It's time to get the latest from Serie A now as we speak to Italian football experts Nicky Bandini and Mina Rzouki. Hello to both of you. Right, Manchester United, they've said no more incomings. They've not sold Scott McTominay. What does that mean for Sofyan Amrabat? Because we thought he might come in if McTominay went. And if so, where could Amrabat end up now? Because he's been linked with Liverpool too.
Yeah, he's been linked to a lot of places. And frankly speaking, considering the way that Manchester United have played and what is going on with their midfield, we obviously like the personnel there. But I think that Amrabat could be a really useful presence in there. But it doesn't look like that's going to work out at the moment. Amrabat has actually had Atletico Madrid also show an interest, and he has spoken in favour of Cholo Simeone's style of play, which is a first. I haven't heard very many people telling me that Atletico Madrid's style of play is fantastic, but he does like that. He does like their style of play, and he thinks he could fit in.
Of course he does. He loves a fight. Amrabat loves a scrap. I think it would fit in. He'd fit in nicely there.
He'd fit in nicely, although Nicky actually thinks, you think he's going to stay?
Yeah, well, so what I've heard is essentially at this point, Fiorentina have told Amrabat, we want a decision by this Friday, and if we don't get a decision by this Friday, then that's it. You're not getting a transfer. So that's kind of an artificial deadline that's been set for him by the club, and the club want 30 million euros, which so far Manchester United haven't been able to been willing to pay, which is partly, of course, linked to that McTominay deal, and if something else happens going out. But I always think with these deadlines, clubs sometimes will set a deadline, and then if push comes to shove at the end of the transfer window, they might change their mind. But that's certainly the message they've given to him as a player is, Friday is our deadline. Make it happen before then, or it's not going to happen.
And he has been included in the squad for the Conference League for Europe. So that could tell you that there's something in that. Having said that, I mean, you asked me about Manchester United. They've also been linked to Marco Verratti. Now his contract is up and it ends in 2026. He was supposed to go to Al Ahly. But I think the player would rather stay in Europe. So we know Bayern Munich is also interested in him, another midfield presence. 50 million is the price tag. Is that too much if they're not paying 30 for Amrabat, who I think is a better solution for them?
I think it's pretty transparent with Verratti. He's got this offer on the table from Al Ahly. The terms of it are agreed. The financial part of it is agreed, and yet it hasn't happened. And that says to me that Verratti is hanging on with his fingernails, hoping that he's going to get the offer he wants in Europe. And I think that's understandable. He still has ideas about wanting to play in the Champions League. I think that's the dilemma lots of players are having this summer when they're being offered that Saudi money. Would I rather keep playing in the Champions League? And United would be an option for him, certainly. And he's an interesting player, someone who's been a starter for the Italian national team for ages now, for a decade. But whether or not he's as reliable as Amrabat, I might be with Mina on that one. I think he's got a slightly more chaotic presence on the pitch and a tendency to sometimes get himself in trouble that he never quite grew out of.
Well, Pavard also looking unlikely to go to Manchester United now from Bayern Munich, but it looks like he's going to Serie A with Inter Milan.
Looks like it at the moment. I think with Inter this summer, I would say don't believe anything until the deal is signed, because there's been a few transfers. I'm thinking of Samardžić in particular, where everyone was agreed it was all done, and then at the last minute it wasn't, which in Samardžić's case came down to a payment that his father wanted. But Pavard does seem like the one they're lining up at Inter now as their one big signing for the summer. They've cleared out about 150 million euros worth of players, with obviously Andrea Nana being a headline case and Brozovic going to Saudi as well. So they've brought in all this money, and the fans were told with all this money going out, we're not going to spend more than we bring in, but we'll spend what we bring in. That hasn't happened at all, and there's sort of some real frustration amongst fans about the spending this summer. Pavard would be the one big signing this summer that they might make.
And I think it's one that it's worth noting that he really would like to move to Inter, largely because of the role. He likes to play defensive football. He wants to be a centre-back. He doesn't want to be a marauding full-back by any stretch of the imagination. He feels that he has talked to Simone Inzaghi and that he likes the role that he would get to play at Inter and be guaranteed that place. So that's perhaps why he would really like to push this deal through. And perhaps, unlike Lukaku and Samardžić, Inter can get one over the line.
Well, with Lukaku then, all right, no one has got it over the line. Everyone knows how good he can be, but for some reason, there doesn't seem to be any movement at all, and there hasn't been since really the start of the summer.
Okay, well, it's a difficult one.
It was a heavy look.
I think, to be honest, he sort of played himself into a corner that made things very difficult for him. I mean, we've always known, and obviously from all the interviews we've spoken about this endlessly, that he has shown some love for Inter to have then negotiations with Juventus suggested that that's the club that he really wanted to go to. Unfortunately for him, Juventus is not in a financial position that they have been in past season, that they have lots of money to spend on players. And the only way that that was going to happen is if they managed to sell Dusan Vlahovic, who, it's worth noting, scored and got an assist on his first day. So is playing fantastic football. The fans are very much on his side and definitely do not want Lukaku. So it looks like Lukaku's just out there waiting for a club. He doesn't seem to want to be moving to Saudi Arabia. Now there's fresh links with West Ham and potentially even Tottenham. So it's about, I think Tottenham would look to do this deal to see, they want to assess their options. But I think he'd be a great fit for either side, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the Serie A side of this really feels like it's completely collapsed. Inter feel, we talked about it on this show a few times, feel betrayed by him, feel like he went to their great rival and turned his back on them. But Juventus, they had that flirtation with him. Their fans have always been really against it. I mean, you've seen sort of banners hung outside the stadium, levels of protest against the idea of even signing Lukaku. As Mina said, completely was always reliant on, can we move out and Dusan Vlahovic bring something in, which is why that swap deal was mooted for so long. But the fact that Vlahovic starts the season really well with a goal, with an assist in that first game, looks to have this great connection with Federico Chiesa, who really is the player who Juventus should be building everything around at this point. I think that's probably the last nail in the coffin for Lukaku to Juventus. And at that point, as we've all been saying, what options does he still have left available to him?
Well, what about Hugo Lloris in talks to go to Lazio? Why is he the right man for them?
I think he's a player who's started top-level Premier League side. He's obviously had his ups and downs at Tottenham, but I think that's sort of very much in the deal of opportunity, I would say. They've looked at someone who they know is probably going to want to start, hasn't got so many years in his career that he doesn't want to waste them sitting on the bench anymore. They know he's been a good goalkeeper for Tottenham, even if Tottenham have moved away from him. I think it's very much an opportunistic end of transfer window.
But will he start? Because they've got a great goalkeeper in Provedel, and Maurizio Sarri seems intent on starting him. So is Lloris happy to come in and potentially play second fiddle? So, I mean, they do have a lot of games. They are in the Champions League, Lazio, so there is an opportunity for both of them to play. But I think that for Sarri, he would prefer another goalkeeper that's happy to sit on the bench, whereas one who's as big as Lloris might be too difficult to handle in the squad for.
I do think that would be a cup keeper and league keeper situation if Lloris goes there. I think you would get a clear sort of one for both. And I think that fits in with what Sarri said last season about always suggesting his squad wasn't big enough for European competitions. I think he would extend that to the keeper.
Let's hope so.
Ryan Fraser from Newcastle to Empoli on loan. This one came in to us about half an hour ago. Would that be a good move for everybody?
I think that Empoli, from what we've judged, is that they suffered a loss in the first game of the season, which perhaps we didn't expect, although they tend to lose their first game of the season anyway. You could see that their manoeuvre is quite slow. They need an injection of pace, an injection of dynamism and acceleration in their overall attacking play. So it's something that would really suit them. But the question is that they want a straight loan, whether or not that could be something that can be arranged. That would benefit them greatly to their attacking play that they're trying to build, because they feel secure in defence. I think it's just overall and how they can actually score goals and who's going to be creating them. That's the question mark.
I think what's interesting about this one for me, and it's not obviously one of the headline-grabbing deals of the summer, it's an opportunity for a young player to go and get some minutes. But I think what stands out about it is actually just how we've seen this trend of more and more British players being willing to go and make those moves to Serie A. And I think the success of players like Tomori at Milan has led to others being more open to it. Obviously Ferguson at Bologna as well. Now you've got Loftus-Cheek joining Tomori at Milan. I think you're seeing...
Abraham at Roma.
Yeah, Abraham, of course, at Roma. You're seeing more British players willing to give Serie A an opportunity.